Hey, Richard Matthews here, coming to you from Orlando, Florida, and today I want to talk to you about psychological barriers, which is something that I'm actually struggling with quite a lot in my business today. When you learn to overcome psychological barriers, you can get more done in your business and experience more freedom in your business, which is one of the things I like to talk about on my videos, is how you can get more freedom in your business, whether that's time, location, money, freedom. So first, let's talk about what a psychological barrier is. A psychological barrier is going to be anything that's either environmental or mental frameworks or situations you're in that are going to impact your decision making when it comes to getting stuff done for your business. So one of the things, like just as an example, a psychological barrier might be like, let's say you wanted to make sure you're brushing your teeth every night before you go to bed. And in your bathroom, all of your toothpaste and your toothbrushes are all put up away in a cabinet. And psychological barrier might just be like you're thinking through, like when you go into the bathroom at night, you have to open the cabinet and get your toothpaste out and your toothbrush and everything. You have to get it out. And by changing the environment a little, putting your toothpaste and your toothbrush like next to the sink so you don't have to get it out, you've just made a minor change in your environment that makes the sort of the mental path your brain has to go through to brush your teeth that night just a little bit easier, and it makes your decision making simpler. So I want to bring up a couple of examples that I've been struggling with in my business that I think will maybe hit home with some of you, hopefully, and how I've been working to solve them. So one of the things that I'm working on is getting more employees doing work in my business. So I suffer from the traditional E-Myth, Michael Gerber style stuff. I run an S-type business where I am the practitioner, and I'm working on getting more and more of my work over to assistants and employees, and struggle a little bit with moving those things over, moving tasks over to employees, because I like to think that I can do things better, which isn't true. Or I get stuck in the mentality that I can get it done faster, which is generally where my struggle lies. Is that if I think that I can actually, if I just sit down and do the work, that it'll get done faster than if I had to hire it out, then I'm more likely to do it myself. And one of the things I've realized is the part of that is in the actual like assigning of tasks to a VA. I have to, if I'm going to assign it to someone, I have to document the process for how it's done, and then I have to create the assignment process, which means I have to get them all the assets that they need in order to do the work, and then I have to actually assign it to them and communicate with them and hire someone. And by the time that I've done all of those things, I could have just accomplished the task myself in the first place. So I've really set myself up with a framework, like a mental barriers that are keeping me from assigning tasks out to VAs or employees. So one of the things that I have been working on is doing two things. So the first one is with the way that I'm hiring employees. So over the past 9 or 10 years, I worked with a bunch of outsourced employees from the Philippines and various other countries, even some here in the States, to get work done, but I've always done it on a project basis, which meant that, even people that I've worked with for a long, long time, I'm always thinking, is this project worth assigning to that person or not, right? Because I have to decide, do I want to, hire them and use those hours and pay for that stuff, or not? And that's the decision that I'm making, is whether or not it's worth outsourcing. So that mental framework is having me ask the wrong question. So one of the things that I've recently done, I hired a company that I'm bringing on a virtual assistant on a full-time basis, so that I've already paid for the hours for this assistant, and which changes my question in my head to, is it worth outsourcing, to how can I use the hours I've already paid for, right? So that's just a shift, a mental barrier shift, where I'm changing my mental framework, so that now instead of asking myself, is this worth doing, I'm asking myself, how can I use the resource I have available to me? So just by changing a small commitment there to, instead of being project-based, being having an actual full-time assistant on staff, I'm going to start looking towards how can I fill that assistant's calendar, fill the time that I'm already paying for. So that's one mental shift. The other mental shift had to do with the actual processing and documenting. So I have started a very rigorous, every day I'm recording the actual process documents and have my VA creating documentation for my processes. And while I'm doing that, I'm actually creating templates for assigning each of those tasks so that in the future, as these tasks come up, I don't have to think about, I have to document this process and I have to assign this process and I have to get them all the assets ready. So what I've created for myself is I've created for myself some pretty simple systems. I have the process is already documented. I have the setup document, so I know exactly what assets I need to collect for them, and I already have the procedure for assigning it all sort of set up automatically. And what that's letting me do is letting me change that mental game in my head. So I'm no longer asking, should I be doing this, or it's not difficult to assign it. It's actually simpler to assign the work to my employee than it is to do the work myself. And I just know from my own standpoint, from my own mental capacity set, that if I continue to make the question, should I do this myself or should I have an employee do it, I'll continue to do it myself because it's faster. So I'm trying to set up systems in my own business that allow me to break those mental barriers, where I'm making it faster to hire it out than it would be to do it myself. So just what I want you to do is think through your business. What are some of the tasks or some of the things that are keeping you from being productive? And is there mental frameworks or environmental frameworks that you're finding yourself in that are keeping you from doing the stuff you need to do, right? And how can you change those frameworks, change either the mental frameworks that you're in or the environmental framework? So I was working on two of those, right? My mental framework was the hiring of the person. I've already paid for their hours, and the environmental framework is it needs to be simpler for me to assign it than it would be to do it myself, right? So if I change both the mental and the environmental frameworks for getting something done, I'm more likely to do the thing that's going to give me more freedom, right? Which is to get the tasks over to an employee and actually grow my business that way. So what is keeping you held back in your business, and how can you change the mental frameworks and the environmental frameworks that you find yourself in so you can actually be more productive in your business? Hopefully that's helpful for you. If you have any questions, do you have any thoughts on your psychological barriers that are keeping you from being productive, go ahead and put them in the chat below this video. Hopefully the wind noise out here in Florida hasn't been too bad for this video, but I will talk to you later.